Yeah, Carrie, I think we learned a lot. I think the COVID environment has really changed the dynamics on what we're doing here today. Is a prime example, and it really has changed a lot of the business platforms out and about. But it's changed in our own operations, where we look at things, where we see things. As we move forward in 2022, many of us talked about it today. I think you're going to see a different equipment mix in that marketplace, have different values than historically have because of reliability and availability of parts and service, things of that nature. I think moving forward, I have some concerns as it relates to the way government envisions farm bills and things like that that we rely on in terms of safety nets. There's some new terminology coming out today in terms of climate-based agriculture and things of that nature, and who defines that and how's that defined. It kind of leaves a little bit in the back of my mind. It's with some questions on how that's interpreted and implemented as we move forward. But as we move forward, I think our labor situation you see is something that agriculture always faces some problems with, and we do have some issues. And hopefully we can put things together and get people back to work. Our government did a really good job of taking people and showing them the ways not to work, and we just need to turn that back around and re-incentivize them in different ways, and try to get a workforce that's supportive of agriculture from the field hands to the truck drivers all the way through and the mechanics in between. We just need to get everyone back on board and get this country moving in the right direction. I think we'll recover. But I think each business owner is going to have to make individual decisions on cropping, mixing, and things of that nature as we move forward, and have a little more conservative viewpoint as prior to we did in 2021.
Well, Richard, I'm glad you brought up the issue of labor. I guess that kind of falls into the first couple of questions that we talked about. It's short in supply and it's costing more if you can find it. So same kind of situation there with labor. Alicia, are you seeing the labor issue in your part of Texas as well?
For sure. And this slightly contradicts, what I was just talking about in terms of using technology and equipment. But one of the things that we have to do to, combat that problem and not having the available labor available to us, who's trained or willing to come and work in the hours and the conditions sometimes that it requires to be in agriculture and on an operation. But we have to look to technology to help us with that. The more technology that we have available to us, it helps us reduce the amount of people that we rely on to be on our operation. And we do still have that manpower that is required to still go around and operate equipment and check pivots. But, a perfect example is, irrigation equipment. We've got, automated irrigation systems that allow us to pick up our phone and see exactly where the pivot is located in the field, whether it's turned on or off. And we have a lot of that control right, sitting at the dinner table at home. And that helps us, that keeps my husband or gives him the balance of being able to, be home and have dinner with his family, but also know what's happening out and around the farm without having to worry about whether he's got someone to go check the equipment or not. So technology certainly helps us, whether it's, actual electronics on equipment and products that we put in everything, or whether it's related back to some of the technology that goes into our seed traits and whatnot. So I think we've, touched quite a bit on technology here, but that certainly is something that we look at as an improvement to help us combat that labor shortage that, we just can't find people who are willing and able to work on the operation, or who even want to be trained to work in some of the conditions that are required. It's long hours, it's long days, and it's certainly not easy for anybody. So I think those are some of the things that, we're still considering and heavily looking into as we look towards the future, is what else can we do and what else can we add to our operation to help us be more progressive in that sense.
Well, Alicia, if you would address the question that I started before I got you off track there. Looking back at 2021, anything that stood out to you, any lessons learned, anything that changed the way that you're planning for 2022 coming up?
Yeah, I think, the labor shortage is one piece of that. It's, when you look at the government payments that have been going out over the course of 2021, I think that's a direct correlation of what we're seeing with problems of people not wanting to work or not being willing to come work and again, some of the conditions that we're working in. So I do think that those things that have happened over the course of 2021 have impacted what we're going to have to do in terms of making sure that we have the help that we need. But on top of that, when we're talking about, input costs that, we've already addressed with the previous two questions, I think it's important to consider those things as well. We're reevaluating our tillage practices. We've tried to get away from tillage in our fields, but when we can't justify the cost of some of these chemistries, we are going to look back into incorporating more tillage onto our farm, because we have to combat those weed issues with something. We can't just let them grow in the field. So we will look at tillage to kill the weeds versus trying to use some chemistries on that. And then another piece is reevaluating our fertilizer program. I mentioned it previously in the first question that you asked, but we're going to reevaluate how we're applying fertilizer next year. Whereas, in previous years, we've put on, maybe 50% up front, and then we go back and kind of spoon feed the plant throughout the season. Probably not going to put as much on up front. We're going to kind of wait and see what happens with the crop come, January, February. How much water are we going to get? What are things looking like? And then make decisions based off of that to try to mitigate the need for fertilizer inputs.
Michael, how about you? What have you learned when you look at 2021, and how is that going to affect your planning and what you're going to do coming up in 2022?
Well, 2021, I guess, it's been a decent year for us, really. I mean, in our area, I mean, we've had adequate moisture and adequate prices, but I guess here in the last half of the year, we've seen the increases in inputs. So, diversification to us has been the key. We've been taught that for generations here on our farm and ranch from our grandfather and great grandfather about diversification. And sometimes we can get so caught up trying to do so many different things, and then it goes back to that labor deal and trying to do it with as few amount of people as you can do it, and it creates a lot of big problems for us. And so one of those things that we will be looking at even into the next year is trying to diversify ourselves a little bit more to where it takes a little bit less labor, and that comes in on raising our beef cattle. We do tend to seem like I like ranching a whole lot better than I do farming, but sometimes it cash flows a little better for us. It seems to, and we're in a lot of value added programs with our cattle side of our farming and ranching. And it does take a little bit less inputs, seems to be. And so we'll be expanding our beef herd some more. We've been in a continuous beef expansion for years, but we'll diversify some of our row crop or some of our grain ground back into some grass. We continually plant more grass each year to definitely supply enough forage for the expansion of what we want to expand each year. And that's worked real good for us. And technology, I guess my nephew, he's a lot better as far as the technology stuff, or at least trying to get some implemented in our farm and ranch. But we do use a lot of technology for sure on our beef cattle herds. I mean, I know it. People say, "Oh, well, what can that be?" But just like when it comes to labor, I mean, we use a lot of remote cameras for water, checking cattle water facilities that are, if I had to go and go check those manually, that's a 60-mile round trip for me. And that's time. And as Richard said earlier, time is money in our operations. So that's very crucial and very important that we try to use as much new technology, no matter if it's not only in the grain crops or cotton or beef industry side of everything. We try to adjust to do some of those things, and that's what we'll continue to do. We're currently right now we are using a new product on some of our breeding selection called from Zoetis. It's a DNA program that we actually are evaluating our keeping heifers, and it's so far it's working really good. We're definitely learning a lot more about what we're raising, and especially if you're in a value added value added program with your beef cattle, you better know what you're raising. So that has definitely been a good eye opener for us, and we definitely hope to use that as a benchmark because we do a lot of value added products, and it comes through, and we gather a lot of carcass data on what we raise. So definitely a lot of things that we hope to, I guess, see in the next year that we did not get to utilize maybe so much in 2021, but just hopefully we'll gather some more of that technology stuff.
Well, Michael, that takes us into our next question. You mentioned new technology, new products, new offers. One of the great things about American agriculture is the innovation and the new technology, the new products that come along. We're constantly seeing new products and offers. I want to ask the three of you, what factors do you consider when you're switching products or maybe trying out something new, when something new comes on the market? Who or what helps you decide when you're making that switch? Alicia, if you would start on that question for us.
Yeah, when you look at the industry, there's hundreds and hundreds of these startup companies that are all trying to get into agriculture for, this, that, or the other. We're looking at, aerial imagery and what value can that provide to operations, and what can we do to snap a picture of your field that reduces the need for boots on the ground. And now we're looking at biologicals and what inputs we can put into the soil to help the microbial activity and to really help promote soil growth or root growth on plants. So there's all kinds of, technologies that are, coming out, and companies that are really trying to introduce things into agriculture to help make us more progressive or more proactive about fixing some of these issues. And I think for me in particular, and really on our operation, we're really looking for data. I want to see the proof of, how is this going to affect my ROI? Whatever I'm going to pay for this, what's my return going to be? Because, ultimately I can't be just throwing money out there just to try something for the sake of trying it. So, test plots are a huge thing that we're involved with. We do a significant amount of test plots on our operation, be it cover crops. We've tried some cover crop situations with the local extension agency. We've done numerous seed plots with one of our cotton seed suppliers. And then we'll also do fertility and chemistry test plots as well, where we leave a test strip in the field. We're trying something new, foliar applied, and we'll leave a test strip to see really what impact it does have. We'll pull plant tissue samples to help us really evaluate what that was, whether it was just a cosmetic effect and it really made the plant look green and pretty, or did it really affect the nutritional value of what that plant is taking up. And the same thing with soil samples. We're pulling soil samples on our operation as well. So to me, and maybe it's a little more of my background and the agronomic data, but we're really, really looking into that data and allowing it to help guide our decisions for what we want to try and what we want to consider trying in the future. I'm not afraid to try something and be the first to try it. But I want some data there that it's been tested on, a particular crop or on a particular soil, or, what is it really going to do and what's the science behind it? Because I think there's a lot of value in being able to justify that when you're implementing something on your operation. And, another really big important piece is what's everybody else across the country doing. And I would say Farm Bureau has really enabled us to make those connections. And not only do we serve on the Texas Young Farmer and Ranchers Committee, but my husband and I also serve on the American Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee. And just this past weekend, we were at a committee meeting where we met with other committee members across the country in Oregon and Utah and Missouri and Indiana. So we have an opportunity to network and really find out what they're doing on their operations, what's working, what's not working. And maybe they've tried a new technology that we've not heard of, or maybe they're testing something out on their operation that, that we might be interested in. It's just, word of mouth is a big deal. And when you're talking to your neighbor about something or talking to someone across the country about something, a lot of times we looked for that guidance as farmers and ranchers, because, a lot of times I'll trust my neighbor more than I will the salesperson who's walking in the door to try to sell me something. And I think that says a lot.
Well, Michael, you mentioned some of the new technology that you're using with the DNA evaluations. What do you use to come up with a decision on whether or not you're going to switch products or try something new like that?
Well, I definitely rely on fellow producers, that have a wealth of knowledge as far as to something that I may be interested in. definitely, as Alicia said, we definitely use the information that our extension service puts out for us in field trials. But I really like to rely upon fellow producers that are close by, or and I watch them try new products, and definitely see if that it's been successful for them. And if it's been successful for them, and especially in our area, I feel like we can be successful with it also. So sometimes we have to reach out a little further than just local information, and that does. I've been privileged to be able to gain a lot of information from fellow producers from across, not only from my area, but from across the state and from across this whole great United States. Just being on the Cattlemen's Beef Board has opened a lot of doors for us here on our operation for new technology in our beef operation.
Well, Richard, I know that you have one of the premier rice research facilities right there in South Louisiana, one of the premier facilities in the world right there. I know that's probably a good source for you when it comes to rice information. What else do you depend on when it comes to trying out new things, new products, new innovations?
In terms of extension and that network of expertise and database, like Alicia doing, we do a lot of field trials here on our farm on very, very different agronomic, whether it be soil amendments, whether it be foliar fungicides, foliar fertilizers, and the like. But I think at the end of the day, I think university data is something that we rely on. It's a third party database that's validated and recommended over a period of time based on our particular regional needs. I think both speakers discussed the networking and the regional application of a lot of these technologies. Just because they might work in Ville Platte, Louisiana, doesn't mean they're going to work in Vernon, Texas. We have different dynamics. But I think one of the things as technology has changed, and one thing in terms of an adaptation of new technologies, you see a lot of web-based forums that have sprung up, whether it be agronomy, whether it be machines, equipment. There's some for tractors, some for combines, some for dirt levelers, some for livestock production. And I think those are another way to reach out and gain some direct networks on if you ever tried this product, what do you think, to give kind of a supportive role in some of the new technologies. As you alluded to earlier, Carrie, they come in fast, and this technology is tough to keep up with on occasion. Return on investment you mentioned earlier, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I think producers look at return on investment in two different ways. They look at, will it make me money if I spend a little bit of money, but will it save me time? Michael talked about the remote access of water troughs and having those visuals. We talked about the irrigation things. I think a lot of these remote applications, I think the drone footage, I think looking at NDVI imagery, and I think using satellites, using drones for different things. I think you got to weigh differences and see what you can bring back. I tell a kind of little story. Somebody said, I have a combine and I've been collecting data probably on our farm for about 30 years of harvest data. And one guy said, well, what you do with all that data? I said, I don't know. I just put it in a file that I look at every now and then. But how do you aggregate that and articulate that? And there's a lot of tools and a lot of companies coming in to do that. But there's always a proprietary aspect of that data because it's yours. And that's another conversation for another day. But at the same time, so technology is there. A lot of people want to help you with it, but what they're going to do with it at the end of the day, and will it bring money back to your house and your family is probably the biggest question on what we employ or not.